The aspect of getting yourself healthy is very much like running a successful business. You have to track your KPIs. You have to know your numbers.
If you don't have the health and vitality to enjoy everything you're pursuing in life, you're doing it wrong.
I don't care about living to 100. With modern technology, they're going to keep you alive. What are those last few decades actually going to look like for you? If you can get yourself into tip-top shape, that is a proxy to say that you can actually handle a lot of the shit that comes to you in life.
Welcome back to Founders Garage. Today, I'm with my friend Dan Go. Thank you so much for sitting down and having this very worthy discussion today.
We got to have a real garage next. Like, we got to have like all your cars, real garage.
Real garage.
I see the vision.
Get the fuel. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be a fun place to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Open it up. Well, the context for this one is, for me, it's different than most podcasts. Not only do I know you personally, but I have some stories that I can get into, but I'm very passionate about this topic. And I think it's when you reach 40, you kind of look back at everything. You're much more introspective. You kind of like recalibrate life. You look at where you're at, what's left, and a lot of like priorities change. But at this stage in my life, especially after what happened over the past kind of decade, I look at things now and say, if you don't have the health and vitality to enjoy everything you're pursuing in life, you're doing it wrong. And also, you can kind of have the largest ambitions to do everything in the world, but if you miss the main things, you end up failing anyways.
Yeah.
So you have your health, and your body is the one vehicle to achieve everything that you want in your entire life. Yet we don't tend to prioritize it or research it or study it enough that it deserves. So this conversation and everything you stand for and everything you've been doing for a long, long time is putting and shining a light on health and fitness and the things that help you perform and achieve what you ultimately want. Because success without the health is like ultimate failure. So thank you for being here. I want to hear the story that went from who you are, you're growing up, to the gym, to everything you're doing today. I want to hear a little bit about that.
Well, thanks for having me on. Thanks for putting this on the books. And yeah, we know each other. We go way back, more than a decade, to our first trip to Whistler. And I'm glad that we're living in the same area and we're able to rap about this and have our families come together. That's awesome. And you're right about the vehicle part, because when a lot of founders and a lot of business owners, when they think about their health, they don't necessarily think about the fact that we only get one body, and this body is supposed to take us towards the achievements, towards the goals, towards the visions that we have. And for a lot of people, they disregard that vehicle. They think, "Oh, okay, I can just think about my health later. I can think about kind of like optimizing. I can think about losing the weight and dropping the body fat later." And the fact is, they're just pushing the can down the road when they are giving up massive amounts of performance, massive amounts of clarity, focus, and just achievement in general. Because if you can get yourself into tip-top shape, that is a proxy to say that you can actually handle a lot of the shit that comes to you in life. Even when we think about like running a business, to me, the aspect of getting yourself healthy is very much like running a successful business. You have to track your KPIs. You have to know your numbers. I remember I talked to a lot of founders. I talked to a lot of business owners, and they're like, "Yeah, Dan, health is the number one priority for me," and all this. And I'm just like, "Okay, cool. When's the last time you stepped on the scale and checked your weight?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, okay, let's phrase this another way. When was the last time you checked your sales conversions?" Like, I check it like every day, sometimes twice a day. I'll see them stripe notifications come in. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, all right, cool. So how many times do you track your health, or do you even track your weight? And they're like, tracked my weight in like months because I'm scared of what I'm going to see on the scale. And I'm just like, that's a total disconnect. It is incongruent, because as a founder, as a business owner, you know how much what you measure is what you manage. You can't even measure the basic things in your health. How are you going to even be successful at this thing that you think that you prioritize? That's like the very first thing. And for me, it's health is more of a step function. So when it comes to health, it's like, yes, the first step function is get yourself metabolically healthy. That's number one. Get yourself metabolically healthy. That serves as the foundation for everything. It makes you more focused. It gives you more energy. It improves your sleep, which improves your performance and energy the next day. You are operating at tip-top shape.
Mhm.
So that's the foundation. And then after that, what we want to do is we want to build in the blocks. It's actually more so like putting in the Jenga blocks and filling out the puzzle. So once you get your metabolic health right, we want to fix your recovery systems. We want to make sure that your quality of sleep is of the utmost priority. Once we get that fixed, then we want to put some muscle in your body. You have a lot of muscle, you've been working out a lot. So this is actually something I don't even think that you have to worry about. But for a lot of people, they do. And then we want to get your cardio engine fixed. But these are all step functions of just building an incredible body. And then when we place it under the guise of like building an incredible business, this is actually how we connect a lot of entrepreneurs back to their health. Because as I said before, it's like when you treat your health like when you treat your health like your business, what happens as a result is that a lot of the same principles that you use to be successful at business are the same ones that you use to create
Yeah.
a healthy body.
There's so many like commonalities there. Like when you look at the health thing as an example, you check your KPIs every single day, your team, who's there, your performance, your conversions, your revenue, your bank account. The funny thing is because that's based on your standards, what you value, and then systems ensure that it's going to be continuous. And the funny thing is, if you valued your health and kind of gave it the credit that it's due, your values would dictate there's a system in place so that it's infallible and it comes before that. And I look at health as an interesting thing where it's not just like it is like definitely something that helps you with your performance, your day to day. I think you will perform better, you will make more money, you will be better to inspire and lead your team. But then the other side of it is when challenges come and knock you across the face, which they tend to do, you're better suited to cope and deal with it because you have yourself figured out. And while I understand, especially when you're younger, I think the gift is like when you get older and you've gone through some shit, you can kind of go back and say, I'm now on the fourth floor, people in their 20s and 30s that litter the internet with their advice. Let me give you the gift of saying, I was in your spot, I was doing exactly what you're doing. It's a worthy endeavor, but here's the one thing I'm going to give you is if you just put this a little bit in front of where you're putting it now, your performance, what you achieve, what you do, what you sacrifice, it's just going to be so much better. You're going to be so much better at what you do. You're going to make more money. You're going to be happier. And it's that fallacy, I think, that we kick it down the road. And when you're 20 and 30, there's seasons for everything, hustling and going all in. But it's interesting for me to think about if I took that differently and if I put my health and my mind and sleep and things just one notch ahead in that period, the thought of what would have like the outcomes is just dramatically different. I just know it'd be way, way different.
Yeah. What we're seeing right now, and I'm 46, and when you get to 40, you see two types of people. You see people who have taken care of their bodies, you see people who have not. And one of the things that I realize, especially as I turn 40, is is the fact that you see this like complete line of demarcation of people who can be 40, but they're looking like they're 25, 30, and they're looking like fantastic. And you're like, I can't believe you're 40. And then you see people who not only look their age, but actually look a lot worse as a result of all the decisions that they made in their 20s and 30s. And I look at 40 as this, it's almost like this line where it's like, you better take care of your fucking body right now. Or if you don't, by the time you get to 60, you are running the risk of not only not being independent, but having your own family have to take care of you or have to look after you as a result of your lack of care when it came to the time that you had to take care of your health. So for me, when I look at this, it's like I don't care really about living to 100 or 110 because something I know, especially when it comes to health, is the fact that with modern technology, they're going to keep you alive. What are those last few decades actually going to look like for you?
Your vitality in those last 2 decades. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was so just in January we were traveling, we were in Mexico, and we were in this condo complex with a lot of really successful 60 to 70-year-olds. And the one thing I couldn't get out of my mind was the fact that a lot of these people, they needed some form of assistance to walk. They actually would not walk down certain stairs because they were afraid that if they fell, they would essentially ruin their lives. When I'm thinking and future pacing myself, I'm thinking I want my quality of life to be at the standard of where it is at this very moment. So what are all the things that I can do to maintain that quality of life. A lot of people, when they think about living longer and all this kind of stuff, they think about the quantity. They rarely think about the quality. I'm always thinking about the future. That's actually a gift and a curse of mine. I'm always thinking about the future. I'm always thinking 10, 20 steps ahead. And when I think about where I want to be in my 70s, 80s, and yeah, as we're talking about this, like medical technology is showing us promise that we can actually go to 120 and 130. I'm wondering what the heck are those quality of years going to be? And if I want those quality of years to be at the utmost highest quality possible, then I have to do something about it now. And the earlier you start, the better. It's better to start when you're in your 20s and 30s, but definitely if you're in your 40s, you best start right now.
That's the wild thing, and I think it comes back to kind of looking into the future a little bit and rearranging your values to say what is the most important thing, and think enough about it where you're like, my family, my kids, like what kind of life do I actually want to live? Let's do this based on the assumption that I'm going to win in my business. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to have options here and there. But whatever varying degree that is, all I know is by the end of it, I want to enjoy my life, my kids, my family. So that would necessitate that you want to be in good shape. If you want to be able to run, catch, pick up a kid and move around with your grandkids or whatever at 70, then that line of 40, I think is significant. 20, everyone tends to like run flat out. Those are like your learning years, right? You're going flat out. You don't know what you're doing. You're getting your ass kicked, but the learning there, hopefully the learning is, that's what your 20s are for. As you get into your 30s, you start to figure some things out. But I agree, that line of getting to 40, it's like what you're doing now, ideally before, but what you're doing now will literally dictate the back half of your life in just such a huge amount.
Yeah. And there was a study that just came out that showed that aging accelerates at two parts of your life. One of them is in your 40s. And for a lot of people who are watching this, something happens in your 40s that you cannot explain. When my second daughter was born, it felt like I was hit with a Mack truck. I was at 43 at that time. It felt like all the workouts that I was doing, they weren't making a difference in terms of like helping me even like keep the muscle that I wanted to keep. Something just happens and you have to rework your entire strategy based on the fact that you actually turned 40. The second one was in your 60s. So when you hit your 60s and when you hit your 40s, these are when the aging process accelerates if you don't do the right things to maintain your level of performance. When it comes to those things that you need to maintain your level of performance, obviously muscle is going to be one, your cardiovascular engine is going to be the other, how you sleep is going to be a major one. I think like a lot of people miss the other one, which is going to be power, how much power you have, because a lot of people focus on the fact that the amount of muscle that you have decreases by 3 to 8% as you age every decade after 30, but the power that you have, it actually decreases at a faster rate than muscle. And power is our ability to, like, my daughter had this thing where it's like you have to jump over this thing in order to get to the kitchen. It's like sometimes if you don't have that power, you actually hesitate because you don't know what the landing is going to be. It's like maybe like a 6 inch, maybe 12 inches above the ground, and you're like, oh man, like if I jump this.
So that's like push, pull, but it's also like, what was the other study around like grip strength and then jumping?
Grip strength and plyometrics. So low form plyometrics would be kind of like these things called lymphatic hops, where you're just kind of like hopping in place. Then you have like second level, which is going to be like broad jumping. Then you have third level, which is going to be like box jumps. And the average 40-year-old who tries to attempt to do these things, I would actually say that they would have a lot more paranoia than someone who has actually kept themselves metabolically healthy, maintained their power, maintained their strength, because of the fact that a lot of them are dealing with the fact that they're overweight. So if they jump, that's probably around like 4 pounds of pressure per extra amount of weight going down on the knees, another 6 pounds of pressure going down on the hips. So they have this paranoia. They land, they're going to mess something up. The other thing is just the fact that they can't even jump in the first place. It's like these things like running, sprinting, jumping. We actually forget about how to do these things and how to land because of the fact that we don't do them in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the physical elements there that they're crucial. Their longevity. It's like keys to living a good life. There's, visceral fat and everything else. But also like the high performance sport is like mentally taxing too. And I feel like stress and anxiety, the pressure that inherently comes with building a business and having a payroll and all these stressful things. I think stress is definitely, a silent killer. So what would you say like the correlation between looking after your body with like a diet. I think sleep ratchets up there because sleep is definitely, if you don't have the, sleep and rest, the littlest thing can just like flatline you versus like if you're healthy, you've got energy, you had a good sleep, then like, a freight train can come at you that day, but you're like, I'm going to brace. I'm going to be able to get through this. I feel like it's the difference between being able to cope or being taken out by stress and anxiety. So what would you draw that correlation between those things?
So the thing I realize about business owners, especially just anyone who owns a business, anyone who's a founder, they will deal with high amounts of stress in their lives. And this stress is going to be constant all throughout the day. When I think about a founder's life, what's happening is they wake up, they go and brush their teeth. Automatically, they're in business mode. They're thinking about like what the day is going to be, how they exactly want to, what exactly they want to achieve during that day, the conversations that they're going to have. It already starts right in the morning.
Instant.
But by the time they're done the entire day, gone through all this stress, what happens? 5 p.m. hits, they go directly home. I love my family, but when they go home, that's another amount of stress, right? They're going home, they haven't decompressed, going home to their family, and it's all this other amounts of responsibilities, all this amount of stress. And then what happens at 8 p.m. at night, 9 p.m. at night? They put the kids to bed. All that stress just accumulates and it turns into things that we call symptoms. So symptoms could be I need a drink to just chill out and go to sleep, or they raid the fridge, or they raid the pantry because they just can't stop nighttime eating. So when it comes to this stress, it's actually psychological and physical. They have accumulated stress depending on what they did during the day. Psychologically, they're actually thinking about this stress. And the thinking about the stress actually compounds and makes it even worse.
Yeah.
So when it comes to stress, what we like to do with our founders is number one, understand how much and be aware of how much stress you're actually going through throughout the day. Do things to mitigate this stress, which are going to be like the foundational things like, okay, making sure that we're exercising, making sure that we're getting enough steps, making sure we're eating the right foods and doing recovery. The other thing that we want to do is actually give them a decompression time at the end of their day. And it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. But you need, this is actually the reason why when a lot of people were done work, they would go to the bar for about 30 minutes to an hour. They call it the second home, or what do they call it?
Have the drink to transition. Yeah.
They call it like second place or whatever. But that was needed because it helps them decompress, helps them be around really cool people. They don't have to think about work. Then they go home and then all that stress is gone because they've already decompressed themselves. So for founders, they actually need to find that second place, whether that second place is a 5 to 10 minute meditation or whether it's a 20-minute to 30-minute walk. They need to have that little area, that little activity between their work and going home to decompress themselves, to relax, to de-stress themselves. And then this is going to go a long way at making sure that they can operate at their best when they get home and also be able to go to sleep, not in a stress state, be able to go to sleep and activate that parasympathetic response for themselves. Yeah.
That was one of the things, like, as a, not even like vulnerable, but like a real story, is like the wake up moment for me was, especially if I'm working from home or something's different, you can have a stressful day, world's on your shoulders, you're doing a bunch of stuff, or you have like a, whatever, something in business happens, or you have a challenging day. For me, the wake up for me was like, I want to just like shut it off and then show up. But that transition that takes only 1 minute. I remember I was sitting there next to my daughter, she's 4 years old. And I remember just being so guilty that I felt like I'm just like this robot that's in a different world. And this adorable little angel just wants to play with you and daddy, play with me. And I'm like, I'm dealing with the world on my shoulders. I can't be this like person that's not even here. And like that moment was just like I realized I need a system to avoid that symptom. And I haven't got it figured out. But the one thing I do know is like being much more intentional with, shit happens. Work is going to be stressful. I deal with fires and trains all day long, but there's that transition that's crucial. And if it's only 5 minutes, I don't know what it is. And I'm sure you've got some suggestions, but for me, it was like gratitude, force deep breaths, walk for 5 minutes, and then let it go. Because I'm like, if that shit won't, affect me in 10 years, then drop it right now, because I don't want to sacrifice this evening on a Tuesday with this little kid who still thinks I'm awesome because I'm dealing with this thing over here that will solve itself or not, but whatever. And I was sick of that trade. And so I'm still on that journey of figuring that out. But I feel like number one is a wake up for me. But number two, that systematic separation between I'm over here at war, at battle, blood on my face, that hypothetical 5 minutes of wiping it off, take a deep breath, and I'm just the guy that will paint nails for an hour. Like that switch and transition, it woke me up. But I also think that that's the most important thing, because what I value most is family in those moments. And while this is an important part of life, that's actually more important. So it just is that constant reevaluation and realignment of like, this is more important. So figure out a system and value that matches so that I don't feel bad of being this guy that's not even present. And I feel like that's just a little wake up for me that was, it changed a habit, basically.
The gift and the curse of being a founder and being a business owner is the fact that we love to fix problems.
Yeah.
And if there's anything we know about business, it's just it's the constant reduction of problems for more problems to just come your way. Using an example from our own business, it's like, we fix, let's just say, sales conversions. And we're like, okay, cool, let's amp up the leads. We amp up the leads, then show rate becomes a problem. And then it's just this like whack-a-mole of like all these different problems. And that's like the life of a founder. That's the life of a business owner. But the problem and the curse is when we are 24/7 with this, when we get home and there's no way to turn this off, or we haven't even done anything to turn it off, and then it affects our family. There we are, it could be like scrolling the phone and you're just like, I just want to be brain dead for the next like 2 hours, because you have not given yourself that time to transition into the next space, into the next activity. The more that we can give ourselves that time, and I think like with a lot of founders, they become a little bit guilty because they're like, no, I got to get home to my family. I got to get straight home to them. I'm taking time away from them. That's like the thing that goes on in their minds is like, no, I'm just got to get straight into the fold. Got to give my wife a little bit of like relief and, just get straight into it. But no, we actually need that like 15, 20-minute type of time where we're doing anything. For some people, it could be taking a shower, right? Like, because no one can
changing your state. It's like forcing a different state.
You're in a state where no one
Switching
can
gears.
interrupt you.
Yeah.
So that's actually my thing. When I'm done work, I just go like take a shower right away. And when I take a shower and I actually do this thing where I put on my home clothes. So when I take off my work clothes or go to the shower, put on my home clothes. Once I put on my home clothes after the shower, I'm in dad mode. This actually reminds me of a mutual friend of ours, Todd Herman, came out with the alter ego effect.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he loves to do when he is done day of work, and Todd Herman's the author, alter ego effect is about taking on this persona for different activities to become the best performer at them. So when he's done his day at work, he actually puts on his daughter's bracelet, and then that turns him into Todd, super dad. So for me, it's like putting on my clothes after my shower. I'm like, okay, dad time, family time right now. For a lot of other people, it could be taking a walk. For a lot of other people, it could be meditation. I would not recommend the alcohol route, that we talked about earlier, but that actually works for a lot of people too. I'm not here to judge, but we need, especially as business owners and founders, we need to have that time to ourselves, because if we don't, and we just get into the fray, we're not gonna operate at our best. We're gonna be a shell of our former selves, and most likely, we're going to run into all these little symptoms of like, I'm just going to be on my phone and just like, want to turn my brain off, or I'm going to be doing something completely different, not being present with my family.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we want to avoid.
And by very nature of being a business person, like you have to kind of think in like systems and like methodologies that scale. You think in frameworks, you have to run a business. And I think because we have that natural inclination anyway, the beautiful part that I've learned is, and again, I'm a work in progress for sure, but to bring that same kind of ideology of like systems and frameworks into your personal life and how you run your life and maintain that standard and succeed there too, I would argue it's more important, but it's like, it's just like the neighboring business systems work with your life. And that's why I love hearing that mechanism that's like, you literally change a mental gear when you're going from something triggered by something, whether it's an alarm on your phone. Like I started doing one where it's like, it's funny how inconvenient it is, but like my alarm will go off at 12 and 6 for gratitude, just pops up gratitude. I'm always doing something. I'm literally on a call doing whatever, but it's that one moment I have to reach my phone and swipe. And it's like instantly 3 seconds. What am I grateful for? Miserable, happy, busy, whatever. That's like one very micro example of like, It's a system, happens every day, twice a day. It just occurs, but it helps trigger something else. And I feel like if you do that for your health, if you do it with your sleep, if you do it with your family, you bring in these like beautiful, blessed systems that like your business, you want your business to run effectively, but what about your life? Same methodology, both sides. And I mean, if you can figure that out on both sides, then it's like, then life becomes pretty interesting.
This is taking me to a couple of places. So one of them, my friend Eric Partaker, he's known as the CEO coach, former CEO of Skype. Well, that's an old one right there. So former CEO of Skype. He came out with this book called The Three Alarms.
Okay.
Which is what you're talking about, alluding to what you're talking about, which is he has an alarm for work, he has an alarm for family, he has an alarm for sleep, and he has these separate alarms that go off at the same times every single day. And these alarms actually are used as triggers. For you, it's triggering gratitude. For him, it's triggering his transition into whatever the next thing is. And to your point about systems, for me, it's like systems work when discipline fails. And we want to be able to use the things that we are so good at as entrepreneurs in the rest of our lives. Sometimes we could be a little bit more militant than most. Like my wife, for me, I'm like systems systems guy. 7 like so we have this thing where it's
You're
like
rigid 7 p.m.
we talked about this at the pool where it's like 7 p.m. bedtime steps, 7:30 lights out, right? And my wife, she's a bit more flexible on the and then when she puts our kid to sleep, it's like they're going to sleep around like 8:30, sometimes like 9. And for me, I'm like systems. No, you're getting to bed by like 7:40. You're gonna be asleep. And if only we can take the things that we're strong at, which we can in entrepreneurship, and place them towards the things that we want to be successful at, which is going to be family, health, then that actually is our superpower. So when can we bring these systems, and when can we be intentional, or when we are intentional about these systems, what happens as a result is you don't have to think about being healthy. You don't have to think about being a better dad. These things are already fixed in place. And then that's what you're doing with your alarms. And that's what I'm doing, like when I'm running these systems with my family, when I'm running these systems with my health. And something that I realize, not only just about like entrepreneurship, running a business, but also with our own rhythms in our own life, is that we love routine. Your body actually thrives off routine. Your mind thrives off of routine. It wants to know, when is the next meal coming? It wants to know, when is it going to be family time? And when is it time to go work out? The things that we do repeatedly are influencing these rhythms inside of our brain and bodies. So the more that we lock these things down, the more that we do them at the same time, the more that we create this routine for ourselves, the more our bodies and brains just enable us to crave these things. So when you do them enough times, it doesn't become this negotiation anymore. It's like, no, I don't give a fuck how I live. Yeah,
systems and routine become law.
Yeah, I'm gonna show up anyways, right?
One thing I found with that is I didn't give myself kind of like credit or permission to do it, but making sure that my commitment to systems and time and effort and everything I'm scheduling is directly in line with my values. Because everything that I had done for the first kind of, I guess as an adult, the first 2 decades was like what I feel like I need to do. And it was like completely business oriented. So of course, like health out the window, I can do everything later, relationships, let them fall, whatever. The whole thing just done ass backwards. But the cool thing, again, it's on this like trend of like 40, you start to have perspective. I feel like perspective is everything in life, but maintain that perspective. The cool thing is systems are something that anyone can implement, but if you directly connect them to your highest values in your life, you systematically make sure that the most important shit gets done, whether you have the discipline, motivation, or feel like it or not. And that compounded over time can lead to a good life. And I feel like sometimes the missing link is like, you'll create systems for what, your job or you're obligated to do, but you don't create systems for like your highest values. And again, like the easiest correlation there is like, if your highest value is your health, then that comes before you got a meeting at 6. Great. Like 75 hard is a good example. Like if that's what you're committed to, your values are your health, doing 2 workouts a day is not practical by any stretch of the imagination, but you have that non-negotiable kind of thing rigidly put in there. And I just feel like the values of systems, whether it's your family or health, have it in there. the majority of the time, you're not going to feel like working out, at least at the beginning, but you're never going to regret a workout. So if that's systematically in there for your family and your health, of course, your business, your busyness of your calendar, it's going to find its way there. But if you have systems around the values, it just makes everything in life easier to handle and easier to do. And also just the net output of everything at the end of the day, it's just more worth it.
I'm a huge fan of constraints, massive fan. And the reason I love constraints is for two reasons. So there's one type of constraints where it upholds the value that you have in life. So if your value is family and you want to get home to dinner with them 5, 6 days a week, being there at 5 p.m., you will set that constraint and then you will work around that constraint because it upholds what you prioritize as what is your value. And the law of entrepreneurs, my whole thing with entrepreneurs is the fact that they over optimize for the shit that actually won't matter in the end.
Mm-hmm. Long
Like,
term.
long term, it is highly driven by tons of insecurity. Because like, oh, I have to get to like $1 billion, and like, what the fuck is that gonna do for you? Like you're optimizing for that, but you're giving up your family at the same time. You're giving up your health at the same time. So what exactly does that do for you? And there's also this concept of like balance with a lot of like these high level entrepreneurs, and what they're talking about is like balance is overrated. I actually say that balance is actually what keeps your values alive, and understanding these constraints. So let's just say, again, health is a constraint. Your value is I'm in the gym 2 p.m. every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm working my ass out, and there's no excuses. I'm treating this like a meeting. And then there's the other constraint, which I think is probably one of the philosophies that a lot of people take towards business. It's one of the strongest philosophies that people use to build incredible businesses, but they don't use it to create an incredible life. And that is, for me, the bottleneck method, or what one would call the theory of constraints. So when we're thinking about something that is not necessarily working well in our lives, let's just call it our health. Let's just say that we're every single year we're up maybe like 5 pounds. We have like 30 pounds to lose, like whatever it is, right? That is the symptom. That is like the thing that is not working. Oh, cool. When we think about this problem, what's the number one thing that holds us back from achieving the thing that we want? And I'm looking for symptoms and I'm looking for causes. So let's just say like late night eating is a problem for a lot of people, right? Okay, cool. So late night eating is a symptom. This, if the one thing is the late night eating and we get this fixed, would it make losing 30 pounds significantly easier? For a lot of people, it would be life changing, right? You just like fix this one habit. So when it comes to the theory of constraints, number one, I'm trying to find exactly what is the one habit that we can implement that would actually make the whole idea of like this weight loss thing irrelevant. Let's just call it like nighttime eating. Now, what is the root cause of that constraint? Why do you fucking do it? Like, why do you always do it? For a lot of people, it's because they're not decompressing. They're highly stressed. Some people are actually skipping breakfast and then eating uncontrollably later on in the day, and they have no idea, "Oh, I can't control it. I just have to keep on eating." It's like, no, it's like there's a physiological and a psychological reason why you do this thing, this huge, horrible habit. Find that. Find the root cause. And then afterwards, instead of thinking like I have to do all these convoluted things to like fix this problem, we're just going to subordinate everything. We're going to just like make this one habit, whether it's like not eating past 6 p.m. and doing everything we can to like hold up that value. We're going to subordinate everything and we're just going to focus on that one little thing right there. That's it. Because if we're trying to focus on, oh, we got to optimize our blood work and we got to fix our sleep and we got to weight train, we got to do this.
It's too much.
It's too much.
Because that means you're like upending your life entirely. And realistically, no one's going to do that.
It's overwhelming.
At least at the beginning.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to, why don't we just like fix the worst habit?
Yeah.
And find out why we do it.
You eat like shit or you're not sleeping, set an alarm. And I feel like it starts with those main things of like, you're not working out, ding, ding, ding. Yeah. You're eating like shit, ding, ding, ding. Your sleep is garbage, ding, ding, ding. Let's do one systematic prompt that changes one thing at a time, week 1, week 2, week 3. And then let's ride that out for a couple months, see how your life changes a little bit. And then you can get to base camp. And then you start to figure out, then we get into tactical stuff about like, oh, what should I layer in? And stuff I wanted to ask you about, like wearables, supplements, things that I can augment my workout, how to do a different workout. All those things are layered on top of the basics, though.
Absolutely. It's like, let's actually fix the foundational thing that holds us back from what we want. Once we fix that, then let's layer on the next thing. Let's layer on the next. Let's layer on the next. And when it comes to these tactical things, like the tactical things for entrepreneurs, that's actually like the fun stuff. But they want to go directly to the tactical. They don't want to do the foundational. So one of these, so I was working with an entrepreneur, and we took his body fat down from like 31% to 25%. We dropped 50% of his visceral fat. He gained lean mass as well. His blood work was looking a lot better. And at the end of it, like we went through like his whole like kind of like end of review, and he was just like, yeah, I don't like, yeah, why haven't we gone into like what supplements and like all this kind of stuff? And like I'm like, dude, you're just in phase one foundation right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You just have to get your shit
We're
together.
getting the train on the tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're actually just showing up right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do the optimization shit later.
Mhm.
And then once we do the optimization, that is built upon the foundation. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to do the cool shit. They want to do the peptides, the wearables, and do all this kind of stuff and make themselves seem like they're like health conscious and health focused when they're actually completely just ignoring the
They're
fundamentals and the
missing the main
foundations.
pieces. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The pillars. That's something that like I think about that a lot more now. Again, like the trend is why in the age that I'm at. But I think we're more healthy as a society in many ways. But I would say the undertone of like entrepreneurship, most people are like trying to solve a problem, or there's like an insecurity, like they have some sort of internal drive and reason why. That's a whole separate podcast as of why. But the one thing I really start to see more now, and you mentioned it, like when you're on vacation in Mexico, is like I can think of a number of people off the top of my head that they got a lot more points on the board. They are just stacking their chips, and they have a ton of dough. But like I feel bad for them. Like they're fat bags of shit. They don't feel good. They would say themselves like they know that they're doing it wrong, but yet nothing changes. And so I say that because like I empathize with some of it. I feel bad for them. I honestly do. And then there's other people that like again they optimize for the points on the board. Business is thriving, business is massive, money's everywhere. But, the things that arguably, if you win the game, so what is the game? Define the game. If you win the game of business, you've got the company, you've got the money, then what does that leave? How healthy are you to enjoy that? And do you have people to enjoy it with?
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, what is the blocker in so many things, especially for males, that the second they get money, it like hits a little string of ego. They got to buy the bright orange car, and all of a sudden their eyes start to wander and they go find other relationships, or they'll use the apps, and like that's just nothing but like a life ruining recipe. And then there's the other side where they just get completely wildly out of shape, and there's just something in there where it just makes you, I guess I notice it more just where my mentality is these days, but it helps you inform, and like it's always a constant like recalibration of your path, these systems, and what you're doing. What are you optimizing for at any given time? And again, there's always seasons of life. Sometimes you're working more, longer, and harder than others. But when it all averages out, I feel like sometimes we just notorious for missing the mark on like, I'm at a point now where I look at everything and it's all based with a simple lens of like, does that take time away from my happiness? Does that ruin or rob my peace of mind? And like, if I'm going to take a meeting with you, like that's 1 hour, 2 hours driving away from my family. Do I want to make that trade? And if that trade's not directly in line with a pretty superior goal, or usually the money figure, like I'm just not going to do it. And the funny thing is, we just need to constantly recalibrate back to those values, I think, and not miss the mark. I'm on that point now where it's like I'm hypersensitive to not wanting to miss the mark, because I think I did a lot of things wrong for many, many years. And there's this other concept of like the golden triangle. And one thing that I didn't give myself credit for is the golden triangle is like, let's just say you're in your 40s, you've got health, you've got money, and you've got time. That golden triangle is a great breeding ground to live a good life. And I realized I'm not going to take that for granted. So what are the things that I can do now that reinforce and elongate these gifts and blessings that I have? And I'm going to continue to invest and prioritize the health to make sure that this golden triangle of life is extended into those later years. It's just something that I think a lot more about now, where we are in fact living in the good old days. And it's like we have this narrow, like myopic focus on what we're building. The company doesn't even matter. Like maybe it does, maybe you're going to do that for another 20 years. But at the end of the day, companies are finite. What you're doing is like usually a means to an end, but we're so myopically focused on what we're doing or building, it kind of misses that mark sometimes.
And we have to ask ourselves, why are we having these blinders on? And entrepreneurs, founders, smartest people on the planet, I actually call them like mental athletes. They are the mental athletes of our generation. The only problem is the fact that they feel like they have to trade everything for the success of their business. And then why are they striving for this massive amount of success in their business?
Mhm.
It largely comes down to not because of the fact that they want to change the world, or not because of the fact that, uh, not because of the fact that they feel like they're doing something that is like worthwhile for, the entire planet. It actually comes down to ego, and then it actually comes down to wanting to prove themselves in some way, shape, or form. And for me, it's almost like a microcosm of like the mating ritual, where I build this big business. I get to show off to everybody, and it's just like I get to have the biggest peacock feathers of everyone. And to do this at the behest of your family, of your health, your relationships, it's just short sighted. And you're doing it for ego, or a lot of us are like doing it for ego. When I got onto this train of doing social media, getting on the podcasts, and building this business, the one thing that I just kept at the forefront of my mind, or actually two things, were number one, I want to maintain a good level of health. Number two, I want to make sure I keep my family.
Mhm.
I want to keep them.
Yeah.
And I also want to be successful, all at the same time. So what this means is that I have to think about things in a different way. I remember talking to one of my clients, and he's quite successful, but even him, when he thinks about his business, he thinks about it in the way of like, I have to be chief cook, bottle washer, and push these things. And I asked him, it's like, okay, well, if you have to close these like huge deals, it's like, could someone else do it instead and possibly even do it better than you? And the only reason he wants to do it is because he knows he basically has a higher conversion rate than anyone, and he hasn't taught anyone how to do it. Yeah, he could do it a little bit better, all this kind of stuff. And it's such a fallacy. If we are smart people, we would actually create businesses that would be able to not only be successful, but also serve our lives in the back end. It's just a matter of thinking about things a little bit differently. And also for me, like I have no aspirations to be Richard Branson or like a multi-billionaire or anything like that. If it comes at the sacrifice of my health and my family.
Yeah. And I think that's the wake up thing where you talk about like I love that part about like constraints are incredible because like I'm on this train and everyone's on a different path and journey. It might resonate with some people, it might not. I'm on a path now where I definitely can say with conviction that there is little that I would put above health investing because I know how I want to live the rest of my life. And there's nothing that comes remotely close to family and kids that is a value. So while that's my priority, and I always say like keep the big picture, keep the main thing, and don't do it at the sacrifice of other things. I say that a lot right now. That's the stage that I'm at. But I will also say to those ambitious people that look at this and say, oh, you're just a big softie talking about family and health and repeating yourself. The reality is I make more money and I do more and I build better, more effectively in a fraction of the time because I focus on that. And I'm not saying that works for everybody. I'm saying with my values and prioritization and the theory of constraints, it forces me to say, I'm an ambitious guy. I have a lot of things I still want to do and build. It means that I have to think differently and be smarter, as well as use systems and delegate, find talented people and structure things differently so that I'm not sacrificing my ambition or what I can build or create. I'm just doing it differently. And it's because I was younger, I didn't know what I don't know. So I'm not going to give myself permission to do that. I don't know what I'm talking about. But now as I get older, I've been doing this for a couple of decades, I'm like, no, you can do both. It takes a lot of intentional thought, a lot of introspection, knowing who you are, what you prioritize, your values, your constraints, and then your systems to actually be able to build companies. And in my life, I give up more economics to bring more people in, but I just do it differently. And I think it's also different where I remove my ego and I remove the need to build. Like when you're 20s and 30s, like you're eating ramen, you're kicking your own ass because you have to make some money. You got to get to that first mountaintop. And as you go through, you take some wins, some losses, you learn. But then when you do have some wins, like that whole priority matrix shifts. You know what life's more about. You have more experience. But then you can also look at this and say, I'm not going to sacrifice any of that shit for more money. Like it's now a points on the board thing. You can prioritize differently, but all that to say, perspective matters. You can still have all your ambition and build incredible things. And it's not a if this or that thing. You can actually do both. It just takes a lot of introspection and being pretty intentional about it.
I wish everybody knew that you can have it all.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say have it all, I don't mean everything. I mean that the most important things, which is going to be your family, your health, and the success in your business and career. You can have all three of those things. And it's just a matter of opening up your mind towards that. Uh, and also, it depends on who you hang around. I mean, if you're hanging around a bunch of like founders, CEOs who do nothing but work and don't care about their families and who are just downgrading their health, then you're going to be the average of the 5 people you hang around. You're going to be the fat dude in the red BMW and just like hanging your arm out and just be like, oh, whatever, like, as we know, like we're living here in this particular community. We are actually around a standard of all three of those things. It's like, you better be doing well. You better be having a good relationship with your family, and you better be healthy. All the people that we hang around in this particular community, it's one of the best bubbles on the planet. For a lot of people, they don't have that. They have the imbalance of like, oh, I'm just going to focus on business. They have the imbalance of I'm just going to be like ripped to shreds. And you have the other one where it's like, I just want to be a family guy. It's like,
it's funny how much geographic, your location matters so much. Like I think about visiting Toronto and New York and like Silicon Valley. It's a very real thing. In different geographic areas, there is a cultural norm or standard that whether you're aware of it or not, you kind of slip into. And like the obvious one is like you think about like the hustle and drive of like New York City, right? You get there, it's about work, finance, and like it's normal for people to get up early, do their commute to the office, grind all day, push hard because the energy's high in New York. And then when you're done, a lot of things to do in social, you go out, you drink, you dinner. And I always remember hearing these stories of these guys that were like, they'll work till like 6 or 7, then go for dinner, drinks, and then like they'll get home at 10, wake up at 6, do it again. Finance is notorious for that. And I just like I get exhausted thinking about that. Where you come here, it's like all my neighbors are, there's some families, but a lot of them are in their 60s, and like there's lakes and mountains, and I almost felt like when I moved here, I moved into like a retirement bubble almost, where it's like you live in a postcard. You can go do surf and work, but it's just because there's just a bit of a different culture here and the stage of my life, and I think you can probably relate to it. It's very welcome because I don't want to just. I'm beyond the days where I want to be working in New York, staying up late, working on spreadsheets and pitching and doing all that kind of shit. Where if that's the stage you're at, that's the season. There are places to go to optimize for that. But again, it's the perspective of like at what stage and what do you value? Because where you live and who you're around is 100%. It's everything.
It's especially when it comes to relationships and friendships, proximity is one of the most important things. Proximity and continuity. So we're kind of running into this. So we introduced our daughters together. You came by, we played in the pool. And with our family, like we do take off during the wintertime to go off. And for me, I like to go to these surf locations and just, surf all day. But it's hard for my daughter because
relearning new spaces. Yeah.
She makes a relationship in those areas. 4 months later, we're back in Kelowna and she has to like re-engage with all the relationships that she has there. And that's just a small example where proximity and continuity are one of the most important things when it comes to developing these strong relationships. And I would not have moved to this town, Kelowna. We're here in Kelowna. So I would not have moved to Kelowna if I was not already set up with that community. Because if I tried to start from ground zero and tried to find entrepreneurs and find people who cared about their health and find people who care about their family all at once, I would not be, I probably would not be as successful. And probably because of like my time constraints towards my business, my family, and my health, I would not have the time to actually go out and just try to meet these people at like at all these different events. So when it comes to relationships and friendships, it's like you can only build them by seeing people continuously. Not just like once a quarter.
It's huge.
It's massive.
I don't know where the camera is. DM me, founder, if this resonates with you. But the main reason why, like this podcast is a signal flare. The content that I sometimes loathe to do, it's a signal flare. because I'm not trying to pretend to be something. I'm not trying to appease anybody. I'm just gonna, more do my thing for the right reasons. And I am at a point where like I've done a couple things, but I actually really enjoy helping founders build, help them raise money. If you're gonna go public, or if you want to prepare for an exit and change your family's life, that stuff gets me out of bed. I've done it a few times, the right and the wrong way. So I think I can be helpful and add value there. And that's why media is a form of leverage to just put your hand in the air and put out that signal flare and say, if it resonates with you, not everybody, but with you, then let me know. Because the whole kind of reason behind that is I'm also not at the stage of my life where I'm going to slap a sticker on my chest and go to some shitty event where you got to meet this, that, and the other. And I'm not knocking those events, but I'm saying the context of community really matters. And while I really want to pour into people and I want to be a part and contribute and be valuable in a community, I think there is something around making sure you find your tribe and your people. And you can waste a lot of time at quote unquote networking events because it's a catch-all for people that are just saying like, I'm in business, I want to meet other business owners. Great. That's cool. But I want to meet other driven business owners that are trying to do something significant in their life. They prioritize family, they have similar values. And you can lean into the trenches, good and bad, and have the continuity. Where I would rather have a small circle of 20 people that I'm going to go to bat for. We can talk about things about fundraising. We can talk about everything from proxy battles to the good, bad, and the ugly in a trust environment because you build that relationship over years. And that to me is an invaluable thing. You pair that up with building businesses and having that at your disposal, but also the safe space of your family to go back to. It's like, I'm going to go to war. I'm going to go fight the good fight. I have this group and community to not only pour into and help people, but also pull from and help me as I'm on that journey. But then I also have my systems to shut it off and go back and play with my kids. And it's like, it took me a long, long time to figure that out. But community and that proximity and continuity of it in the right trusted context is just, it's so valuable. And you map that up to everything else that you're doing. It just takes some time to set that up and be intentional about it, but it can change your life, really.
Absolutely. It's and the one thing that I realize is that I learned this from Ryan Holiday, where you have these three things, where you have the scene, you have your career, and you have your family, but you can only choose two. And when we're talking about these like networking events, like when I was in my 20s and 30s, like I and had no children and had no relationships, I would go on and say yes, 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 yes to all of them, right? And then now, because we have people that rely on us, to be home as well, now we have to say only yes to two of those things. And for me, I still believe I can have it all. But the only way to have it all is to be a little bit more strategic about what you're doing. So when it comes to these like local events and when it comes to gathering these people in the local community, that's the best way that I can maintain the relationships with the people that I want to talk to. For me, I want to be surrounded by smart, driven people who just want to like achieve the biggest things in the world, while also still being able to come back to my family every single day, 7 days a week, being there for dinner and just making sure that I am a presence in my household. So we do have to think about things a little bit more differently and how we can actually acquire those things. And part of the reason why I moved to Kelowna was because of the fact that this community that we are in right now, it's already been vetted, it's already been pre-selected. We jump in, call anyone, and we have like the best conversation about business. Actually, like probably way higher level conversations about business that I've ever had in my entire life. At the same time, we bring our families together. We do things like going to the pool together, going on a boat, doing wake surfing, like whatever it is. So I don't want to say lucky, but intentional is like one of these things that we have to be, especially if we want to have these friends, have our health, and have our family. And then once we set that intention, then we will figure out the how, which to get there.
I can imagine that like saying that you can have it all almost sounds like a speaking down, pretentious thing. And it will trigger some people, especially if there's
For
a
sure.
big void in one of those areas of their life. But it's not said in that sense at all. I think, I know that you're saying it this way, but the way that I intend that to say that is like coming from experience of someone that didn't have all those things figured out for so long, it's kind of on us to share our experience and help people understand it's not a pretentious thing. It's just an honest thing when you say you can have it all. It's zero relevance to numbers or money. It just means with intention and purpose and values and systems and the right thinking of what you want to do and prioritize in your life, you can have the few fundamentals in place to just live and just be happier. Because at the end of the day, rocking chair philosophy, you're 80 years old, you're sitting there, and the one thing that you're going to be thinking of is like, what do you regret? What do you wish you didn't do? What do you wish you did more of? And our job is just to minimize the amount of regrets that we have. And it just means that there is so much as possible, but you have to invest in your future and you have to be intentional about what matters. And there is times where something that matters more to you is going to fly in the face of your business, your work, a meeting, or making money. That's just the reality of it. But if you're going to do what you value most. And like for much of my life, I could look at, where I was at and, looking like a piece of shit. I'm like, well, you're valuing your business out of desperation to pursue and chase and make money. And you're wearing it because you look like shit. I can tell you, like looking at my younger self with love and be like, you're ruining everything in your life. I can see it and I can empathize with that. But the beautiful part about like what you said is like the foundations, the base. And it makes me think like, we burn through an hour so quickly. The foundations are on us to look inward and figure out you can have those baselines. Net of everything else, you're going to feel better, enjoy your life more, you're going to achieve more. And then what I would love to do, especially with you, is we could break this down and kind of continue this thread around certain areas that you found have been just like supercharging your clients, the trends that you see when people come to you and say like, I'm broken or I'm fed up or I need to change it. What do you see in them? And then how you break down those protocols. And because there's so much more depth to what you do with people that I think the main flag that we're sending now is like, prioritize your health and your family and what you value just as much as your business because it's possible. And oh, by the way, your business is going to be better off for it. But then there's also those other layers of things that I'd love to, we're not even scratching the surface with you.
Let's talk about this where I think a lot of entrepreneurs and founders, they think about the aspect of getting health as a lot more complicated than it really has to be. Our whole focus inside of our practice is to how can we actually make the idea of getting in shape almost automatic? How can we make it as easy and as frictionless as humanly possible? Working with, let's just say, someone like yourself or someone like a founder, you guys are way different people than someone who has a regular like 9 to 5 job. And we want to approach it from what I would consider to be my theory, which is like, if we can make this the easiest part of your life, what would we do to make it happen? So the very first thing that we do let's just like call it from a nutritional angle. Obviously, we would assess everything that's going on. We figure out what the constraint is, build out like what is going to be the counter to that. The other thing that we're going to figure out is nutritionally. Are you making your own meals? I think any founder that's doing above 7 figures or even just doing 6 figures, why the fuck are you making your own breakfast and lunch? I really don't understand that. Because a lot of times when we think about these food decisions, we're making around 200 food decisions a day. This actually takes away from your decision-making capability when it comes to your business. What if we actually took those off the table for you? So we can take these off the table for you in the multitude of fashion. So like for some clients, we would actually be like, okay, well, you're making a lot of money. Why don't you have a private chef? It is ridiculous that you don't have a private chef. When you are making money, it's like, why do you not have someone preparing these meals for you? Or why do you not have a simple meal prep service for you that is actually getting these automated meals fit to your macros automatically to your door? Why? You're ordering from DoorDash and Uber Eats. So that's like number one. How can we get food automatically delivered and automatically in your possession that you don't have to actually think about it? That's catered towards your macros, your calories, micronutrients. Number one. We will fix that. The first thing that we want to do, especially as we're trying to lose weight, is making sure that we are balancing the work to rest recovery when it comes to the actual workouts, to the exercises. Something I found, especially with a lot of people who run high stress jobs, like high stress businesses, is when it comes to the exercise, I don't actually like to do a lot of volume when it comes to their workouts. So a lot of like trainers and personal trainers will put them on like sets of like 4, sets of 5 in order for them to build muscle. I actually find from a long-term perspective, 2 sets is actually enough time for them to not only maintain, but also build a little bit of muscle, especially when they're on a cut. this actually reduces their recovery volume as well. They don't have to spend as much time recovering. They don't have to spend as much time being sore. Now, the only caveat to this is that they have to take these exercises as close to failure as possible. And when I say like we go to 2 sets up, people are like, that's not enough volume. It's like, no, actually,
You're
like
talking to serious, heavy to failure sets.
serious, like heavy to failure sets. Like you can't literally lift the last rep.
Yeah.
You can't.
Okay.
Right? Like we want to be able to take it there. Now, is it harder? I don't know what harder or not harder is. Is it harder to do 4 to 5 sets for a CEO who has time
It's also more
constraints?
time efficient too.
It's so much more time
Yeah.
efficient. And I have this, it's not even a theory. So think about it this way. So if we are lifting weights and we have the same program and we're doing the same program for a full on year, and all we're looking to do is just add a little bit more weight or a little bit more reps every single time that we're hitting the gym. And if we do that for a full on year for the same exercises, will we not force our body to build muscle? Because like let's just say you're starting at 100 pounds on the bench press. By the end of the year, you're at 185 pounds. I'm just extrapolating. Obviously, it's like, but let's just say at the end of the year at 185 pounds, will you not build muscle as a result of getting stronger and adding more volume and more reps, right? So that's the other thing. We want to make sure that we pair the exercise towards the amount of stress that they have. And I find for a guy who's like over the age of 35, 40, 2 sets is like the sweet spot for all of that. And then when it comes to it, and it goes to recovery afterwards. So when it comes to recovery, I'm thinking largely about the thing that we talked about before, which is the decompression time between the work to family time. That's number one. I'm talking largely about sleep.
Sleeping. That was a
Yeah.
big question. Yeah.
That's a huge, I mean, like, and for me, it always comes down to systems and protocols.
Yeah.
So I like to focus on the things that will never change. So when it comes down to sleep, the first step is going to be environment. How can I walk into my sleep environment, put my head on a pillow, and time travel to the next day? How can I set up an environment that's able to do that? So we want to make sure that we have blackout shades. We want to make sure that the room is cool. If you sleep with a partner in the same bed, you want to have separate covers at least, right? Because there's always going to be one partner that runs hot. There's always going to be another partner that runs cold, right? And then at the end of the night, some partner like has already like taken off your covers, or you took off the covers, and it's a complete, it just messes up your sleep. So the one fix to this is just get separate covers. So for myself, my wife sleeps on like this big puffy comforter. She gets really cold at night. For me, I sleep in a weighted blanket that's like 35 pounds. I love it. It's incredible. That's 2 separate covers. And a lot of people are like, oh, what if you want to like do stuff? And I'm just like, just lift up the cover and just like,
You can figure it out.
give the message, right? Like,
Yeah.
So environment. And along with environment, the thing I would add in there is going to be optionally is going to be a sound machine, and it's going to be a sleep mask. And I know we want blackout shades, but we also want a sleep mask because that's just going to make sure that no extra light gets in. So that's environment. Afterwards, we have to focus on routine. So it's the ERT protocol: environment, routine, timing. So routine is going to be, okay, so what time are we waking up and going to sleep? I think, actually, not even I think, like studies are actually showing that the biggest effect that you're going to get from a good night of sleep is just having same sleep and wake times. It doesn't matter if it's you're sleeping at 12 and waking up at 8. And you just want to make sure that your body knows when to go to sleep and when to wake up. And for me, I love to go with my circadian rhythm. So I'm going to sleep at like 10:30. I'm waking up around 6:37. All right. I don't even need an alarm clock anymore. I've done this so many times, my body just naturally does it.
It's the
Just
consistency
incredible.
that your body's
It's
trained.
just, you just train the consistency. The other thing with routine is like, okay, so what am I doing before sleep? And I liken this down to like, what are we doing for our daughter to make sure that at 7:30 she's putting her head on a pillow and going to sleep? Because a lot of things that we would do for our routines is like, we should actually do these for our kids to make sure that they're not going to run wild and just like, one of the things that I find is beneficial is a hot shower or a hot bath. Because what it does is a lot of people think, oh, it's going to heat you up before sleep. But what it does is it actually cools down your body temperature. It allows you to cool it down. So by the time you hit your bed, you're going to be able to have better quality sleep. You're not going to be waking up because you're so hot. And then we're also thinking about, okay, what about screens? I have a thing where it's like, I don't care about avoiding screens at night. If you're going to go on the screen, you best have at least some form of a blue light blocker on your eyes, just blocking the blue light. For me, it's like I remember I was working with a client, and he couldn't for the life of him. He's like, I just can't go to sleep like before 12 a.m. It's just like I'm a night owl. That's natural to me. I'm like, bro, he's actually a friend, but he's a friend and client. I was like, bro, okay, Mike, you're gonna put on these blue light blockers at 6 p.m. at night. You're not gonna take them off. Okay, you're gonna do this for a full week. Just stick with me and trust me on this one. After about 3 or 4 days, he couldn't keep his eyes open past 10 p.m. And he's starting to wake up at 6 a.m. as opposed to 8 a.m. He's like, Dan, what do I do with my life? I'm waking up before the sun even comes up. Like, what are you doing to me right now? I'm just like, you wanted to wake up early and you wanted to sleep early. That's what happens. So people don't realize like how much blue light has an effect on their latency, their circadian rhythms, and also their quality of sleep. So if you are going to be looking at screens, make sure like 1 to 2 hours before you go to sleep, you're going to be putting on your blue light blockers. And then you want to actually give signals to your body that it's time to go to bed. So one of the signals for my body is actually I make this thing. I call it time travel sleep tea. All right. And this has been one of the biggest revelations for me from the past couple of years, where I realized that supplements can actually really enhance your ability for quality and also latency of sleep. And then when I say quality, it means it's your ability to actually stay asleep. And when I say latency, it's like your ability to go to sleep, how fast you can actually do that. So the sleep tea that I make myself, it's like 2 hours before I go to bed. I make sure I take in no liquids at least 2 hours before I go to bed because I don't want to wake up and go pee. It contains chamomile, which contains this compound called apigenin, which calms the nervous system. And I also put this thing called glycine in there, about 5 to 10 grams of glycine. That's been shown to improve sleep quality by cooling down body temperature. The thing I put in there that is low key is the fact that I put electrolytes in there. So about 1/3 of people in North America, they deal with this thing called nocturia. And for me, ever since I was like in my teens, all the way down to like my late 30s, I would wake up several times a night and just have to go pee. It would be either from a sleep disruption or it would be the fact that my body felt like it needed to pee. So when I took in electrolytes actually helps me slow gastric emptying, but also what it does is it allows me to actually absorb and hydrate better with the water, which actually helps me avoid going and waking up and going to pee in the middle of the night. So I do this about 2 hours before I go to sleep. It's been one of the best things I've ever done. I've tested it against the sleep trackers, and it has improved the not only the latency but also the quality of my sleep. And the last thing is going to be timing. We talked about that, making sure that you're sleeping and waking at similar times, both on the weekdays and weekends, and making sure you're getting the right amount of sleep as well, which is anywhere between 7 to 9 hours, depending on who you are.
Yeah. I'm rookie at that, but I just like from like the Whoop data, I can see sleep score, consistency, all those many things. The funny thing is like when I'm hearing you speak, like in the back of my mind, I'm doing this like checklist of, oh shit, you should be doing that. You didn't do that. Put your blue blockers on your nightstand. All those things down to like diet, consistency, food. Just like I wear the same thing every day. It's like I always have, you have to think about what your meals are. That doesn't help making another decision, making your own food, wasting the time. There's that. Then it's also being busy. I don't eat throughout the day. I eat one meal at night, and then I like just eat like a monster after. There's all these little things like I know better, right? And so hearing you talk, it's reminding me of all these things that like there's constantly areas to improve, things that you know that you're not doing. And again, how can I put systems underneath it? Like I'm going to go get my glasses, put them in a certain spot. Systematically, no, 8 p.m. glasses go on. So there's so many things in my life that I can think about. After this, I'm going to talk to you about a bunch, but there's just so many things I know that I can do immediately. But it all goes back to like having a resource like you, I think is invaluable. It sheds light on the things that you know, and it sheds more light on the things obviously that you don't know. And it brings it all together in a way that says, I'm going to improve these areas of my life. And I know that you've got in your work with ambitious founders and business owners and people in general, you've got like a process, I believe, where you can help them like do a quick audit of where they're at and kind of shed light on these main areas and then figure out a way to at least identify and flag things that they can begin to kind of work with you on that. I feel like everyone needs an audit. And especially if you're someone that has any sort of, high flying ambitions or goals or just a high performance individual, it's on us to audit ourselves, constantly recalibrate and figure out these things. And I feel like I know, for at least for me, like there's many things I want to carry. And I mean, for the sake of our time today, I feel like if you're talking to someone like me, or let's just say a cousin or a friend, they're in their mid 30s, you can see they're wearing the stress on their face. They're not looking the best. They have a few things going on. What's the best advice that you can give to them, or a process that goes through an audit that just says, okay, you don't have to figure it all out now, but here's one thing you can do to identify the areas and then begin that process of finding your foundations. What's the quickest advice you give to someone to do that audit for themselves?
I look at it from I would say a 4 or 5 step protocol. So to keep it simple, number one is, what are your main KPIs? What are you tracking? Because if you're not tracking, then you don't really care about it, right? So the 3 surface level things that we look at are going to be your weight. That's going to be taken every day, do a 7-day average. We're going to be looking at your waistline. One of the biggest indicators of like how much visceral fat you have is a simple waist measurement, and making sure that your waist to height ratio is underneath 0.5, right? It should be half of your height. And then we want to be able to take a picture, because the visual representation is going to help you, especially as you lose weight and see these plateaus. And you're like, I'm not losing weight, but your body's obviously getting leaner. We want a visual representation. And aside from that, we want to, if we want to do the optional stuff, it's like, get your blood work taken. Let's see your DEXA scan. Let's see, because a lot of guys and a lot of people are just surprised, like how much body fat that they have when they do a real body fat scan. And that's the thing about a business. It's like, I can tell you, oh yeah, go do this, go do that for your business. But if you don't even know the health of your business, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We don't even know what we're fixing, right? So that's going to be the first one.
Shines light. What are the areas you're tracking? Like your business, your body. What that basically alludes to is like what you're not tracking is like obviously is a forcing function.
Absolutely.
To put a light back on it.
So it's like we're looking at the surface level stuff, which is like your weight, your inches, but the deeper stuff, which is like your blood work, is actually going to give us an idea of like how healthy you are aside from what we're seeing on the outside. There can be some people who actually look lean and look great and healthy, but their HbA1c, their blood sugar, could be at the pre-diabetic range. I mean, we will not know, but we need to know these things, especially if we're doing anything in terms of like making any recommendations, like when it comes to like nutrition or sleep or anything like that. The next thing that we would want to be able to look at is like, okay, so how are you eating every day? And let's actually like let's be honest, because the first thing I get from a lot of founders is like, oh yeah, I eat healthy. And then when we see their daily menu of like what's going on in terms of like the times that they eat, in terms of like the food that's going into their bodies, I'm like, your concept of healthy, if you are above, let's just say 30 pounds and you're trying to lose this 30 pounds off your body, it's like whatever you're doing is not healthy. There's like, you could be eating like all the broccoli in the world, but if you're like 30 pounds overweight, there's something that's happening that's like causing you to like gain weight, and it's probably going to happen on the nutrition side. So when we're looking at it nutritionally, we'll be like, okay, how many meals a day are you eating? What timing are you having these meals? A lot of people don't realize like timing affects appetite and hunger more than they think. I'll use an example where it's like when someone eats right before they go to sleep, number one is that their insulin sensitivity is a little bit weaker. The other thing is also going to disrupt their sleep, which is actually going to make them increase hunger and increase appetite the next day. For a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people. So we want to look at the composition of like the timing, the frequency, and what actually goes into these meals. And then from there, we would look at what are they doing workout wise. We want to make sure that they're actually just lifting weights, because when people come to us, they're like, okay, well, they actually like are super heavy on the cardio side. But when it comes to body composition and trying to get lean, you actually need to lean way more towards the weightlifting side than cardio. And also when you're trying to lose weight, if you have like 20 to 30 pounds to lose, I would never get an overweight person to run or do cardio in order to lose that weight. I would never. And the reason I say that, especially with running, the reason I say that
you can injure yourself.
You have like 20 to 30 pounds that is coming down on the joints of
strengthen,
your body.
Drop it, then start. Move.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that, number one, like cardio, if you lose weight, you don't know what kind of weight you're losing.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like really over indexed on cardio, you really don't know if you're losing fat or if you're losing muscle. And if you lose muscle, that's actually the last thing that you want. And also, it can actually lead to more injuries. And also, if you're doing excessive cardio, it can make you hungrier and also affect your appetite. And the very last thing is that we're going to look at is always going to be sleep. And it sounds like, for me, for a lot of people, this sounds backwards, but we actually work with founders on sleep last.
Oh, interesting.
Oh my God.
I thought that'd be like a first one.
No, because something that I've realized with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, uh, but fixing the nutrition, fixing their KPI tracking, and fixing their workouts is a hell of a lot easier than trying to fix their
That
sleep.
makes sense.
So we want to work on the easy things first. And sleep to me is more behavioral and psychological than it is.
And honestly, it's easier to change.
It's easy. I would say it's easier to change, but to get them to actually do those changes is way harder than trying to get them to change their diet and change their exercise and track their dashboards.
Totally.
Yeah. So we actually work on sleep last, and then when they get the sleep piece dialed in, then we work on all the optimization
And that's
stuff.
base camp to build from there.
You're at base camp. So let's just say like our first job is to get you metabolically healthy. And when I think about metabolic health, I'm thinking about it from an angle of like, what's your body composition? For a guy, it should be anywhere between 15 to 19% body fat. If you want to be at a healthy body fat, the second thing we're looking at is going to be your biomarkers, fasting insulin, HbA1c, HOMA-AR. We're looking at inflammation markers like HSCRP. And when we get into this lane, this is like going to be the angle where we're going to look at food and also supplements in order to get you to that metabolic health, to that level of like metabolic health where you're going to be avoidant of most diseases. And that is baseline. That's foundational. And then we get into the really cool shit. The really cool shit, to me, is going to be the extra. It's going to be, number one, making sure that we have muscle armor, putting more muscle onto our bodies so we remain functional. The number I look at when it comes to muscle is going to be your fat-free muscle index. We want to get your fat-free muscle index anywhere between 18 to 20. That's going to mean that you're going to have healthy muscle, probably for the rest of your life if you just maintain it. And then when it comes to the cardiovascular engine, we want to make sure that we are looking at things like VO2 max, like 1 mile run times. We want to make sure that your cardio engine is going to support your life. I mean, like if there's anything that we're looking at from a longevity perspective of living as long as possible, like you want to have a foundation of having a high VO2 max, and you want to do things that keep you in movement constantly. And I know like the longest living people in the world are not looking at VO2 max and being like checking it all the time, but again, they're in constant.
It's an indicator.
It's an indicator.
Yeah.
And then after that, we go into optimizing blood work, making sure that we're working on the specific things that we see in their blood work. Like one of them for our clients is looking at ApoB and cholesterol. So with his ApoB, he does have family history of heart disease. He also has, let's just say, like elevated LDL cholesterol. So we would work nutritionally, supplementally to fix all those things. The other thing also with this cool stuff is going to be making sure that we are shoring up the nutrients that you are missing inside of your body. We would take a nutrient panel, do all that. We would take a nutrient panel. We will look at exactly what's missing in your body, what's deficient, shore those up with either supplements or food. And then that's like the really cool stuff. But you don't have to do the cool stuff until you get the foundational stuff right.
What's your main mission and message to the world with what you do?
I truly believe that the vast majority of people in the world can look and feel 20 years younger, maintain function, especially as they age, just by focusing in and prioritizing the main things when it comes to their health. And I mean that from a sleep, nutrition, movement, and exercise angle. And to me, it's not necessarily about the quantity of life, of like how long you live. It's about like what do those years actually look like? And if I think about how I want to live this life, especially in those later years, I want to be independent, I want to be functional, I want to be pain-free, and I want to be energetic. And then I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that happens by doing what I can now.
Love it. That's so good. Okay. Well, you have a lot of things that you have some products you're coming out with. You've got a lot of offerings. You've got a lot of tools to help people. You're Coach Dan Go on Instagram and X, where you got a ton of content. You got a ton of stuff on YouTube that's super valuable. I have friends that reach out to me and consume your stuff and say, look what this guy's showing. And then you also have, what is it? dango.co is your newsletter?
Yeah, dango.co is my website. And if I were to point anyone anywhere, it'd be probably to the newsletter.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So go there, check it out. Follow Founders Garage and follow Dean Sutton. Send us a note. What did you think? What do you want to hear more about? And we will see you guys again soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.